I've done some remaster videos in the past regarding some older games that really need it. But today I'm going to actually talk about the remastering of Arisen 2 Dark Waters. Now, this game specifically doesn't really have a lot of modifications, patches and the like to fully improve the game. It's kind of as is. This could be a popularity issue or just the engine being hard to work with. But there are still a few things you can do to improve your game, and I feel like are sort of required to really play Arisen 2 without any hiccups or issues. Alright, now there are 5 mods that you should download to make your experience better. I'll go on each list and I'll also explain how to fully install it and also what it actually changes. Now the first thing would be the unofficial patch. Again, all the links are in the description. You'll have a little download option right here. There's an explanation on what the changes are. They're in German, but scroll a little bit down below and you can see the English changes for the game. So things like boost teaches the perk Liquid Courage correctly, or the quest item Spear of the Warrior cannot be sold or thrown away. The sacrificial knife can't be obtained twice. There's some quest fixes, some logical issues that have been fixed, like not being able to accompany a crew member on the Isle of the Dead, even if exploiting the fast travel system. Still provoking Riley in order to obtain the red bandana after having to fail the first time. Stuff like that to make the world a little bit better, make it sense, and also to just not have any issues where you're thinking like you have to reload an entire process in order to get that progress back, basically. But yeah, basically unofficial patch, definitely recommend it. Next up, we've got the anti-warp. Now, Nexus has a mod that's called like the Enhanced Edition, which adds basically all these mods that I'm sort of naming. The problem is that the Enhanced Edition has a problem for Steam where the dodge mechanic doesn't work, and also it completely changes how much XP you get, and you can't modify it by yourself unless you have some knowledge to how to modify the Arisen 2 game, but otherwise you're kind of stuck with whatever that author has chosen in their specific mod. So we're gonna download it all separately. But the anti-warp is very important. It's hard to explain what it exactly does, but there's basically an issue in Arisen 2 where the vegetation, trees, and basically everything green just warps and enlarges as you get closer. And it can be really jarring to experience, but there is a fix for it. Now you can choose between low, medium, high, ultra. I specifically went for ultra because my PC can handle it, but otherwise I would recommend to just go for high or medium if you're unsure whether it actually works. There's also like an average FPS, and if you see that there's barely any difference, then I would say go at it. He even specified what system he uses, but then again, this system is around 14 years old, so chances are you can probably just go for ultra safely. So just click ultra and it will download the file. Next up is the Nephos Arisen 2 texture mod. Again, it's a Nexus. I'm sure everyone is familiar with Nexus mods. You can just install it manually or go to files and download the 1.0 and the patch 1.3. Both of them are required. You have the 4GB patch and Reshade, as usual, because almost all my remasters include Reshade. So I feel like you could probably watch my older videos to get an explanation, but I'll just do it for the sake of this video as well. So just download with full add-on support specifically, and then you'll be good to go. Alright, I've placed all the files on my desktop just to make it easier to look at. First of all, we would be installing the Arisen 2 unofficial patch setup. You can choose the language if you want, and then click next. I would remove the mod starter integration because we're not using it, and then install. Now I'm gonna not click it myself personally because I'm currently doing a playthrough, so I don't wanna double install it. There's no need for it, but do unclick the mod starter. I don't actually know if the mod starter works anymore. I tried using it last year, but it seemed that all the mods that used to exist in the mod starter were not integrated anymore. So either something's gone wrong or maybe now it's been fixed. But for the case of this video, I wouldn't actually enable the mod starter integration and then install it. Then next up, you have the anti-warp setup. It works exactly the same. Just unclick the mod starter integration and keep the speed tree. And then install it. And that's basically the two most important things already to make your game a little bit better. Now, we've got the texture pack. Now, this one needs a bit of explaining because there's been a bit of a mishap. There's a small issue. Here we have the images POO. Actually, I'm pretty sure I fixed it myself already because this is the same zip folder I have. And then the patch 1.3. You can use the ultra config default, but I personally haven't used it because I think the game is fine as is. And then just let's compiled and extract the PO1. We're just currently putting on desktop just to make it a bit easier. It's a slower setup, but it'll make sense. Now, the thing that I want to mention is that the chances are that your 1.0 file says images.00 instead of P00. So once you've extracted it, you should rename it to P00. Otherwise, it just won't work. And then you go to Steam, to Risen 2 Dark Waters, browse local files, or if you have GOG, the same way to basically get to the files. And then go to Data, Compiled, and then these two images, you just drag and drop them over here and replace any files if necessary. Next up is the 4GB patch. Just open it. Mine is already specifically on the Risen 2 folder because I've already done it before, and the 4GB patch saves up the last file you opened. But you basically have to find your Risen 2 folder again from Steam or GOG or whichever you're using, and just click the exe file and then open it and it will patch. And then last but not least, we got Reshade. You gotta select the game or application. I technically have to go all the way down here. And then you have Risen 2 Dark Waters. Go for Next, DirectX 9. Now, I've already got Reshade installed, so I'm not gonna go through it again, but you basically have the option to select the amount of effects you want on. Just make sure to uncheck it all and then check it all again, so that you don't have to like manually click every single effect. It just saves you a lot of time, and then just install it. If you get a second window of things you have to tick on, ignore it. Another thing I would like to mention about Risen 2 specifically is that there is a mouse issue where the vertical speed is not the same as the horizontal one. For this, you need to go to your data, ini file, and then open up the config default. And then once you have opened it, I would argue to just press Ctrl F and then look up sensitivity and find next. And there you go. And then here's the mouse input. I specifically have it on 0.5 for sensitivity X and then 1.8 for Y to have it around the same speed, which will improve a little bit of the experience. Otherwise, you have to move the mouse a lot to just want to look up or down. And there's also the option to change the language. In my case, it's in German. If you just look up language, you can change the language in the config default file. Sometimes, again, this is very specific, sometimes there's already a default XML file, and changing anything around these doesn't actually work. What you have to do is go to your app data. So you go to your app data local Risen 2 file, then go to config, and then remove the config user.xml. And once that is done, once you start up the game, it will make a new one, also with the settings you have used. But I assume if it's your first time installing it and there's no config user, then if you make these changes before starting the game, everything should be fine. Now, there was one more thing I forgot to mention about the config default, which is actually very important. In the post-processing tab over here, one of the issues that Risen 2 has is that changing the depth of field doesn't actually do anything in most cases. Maybe it changes in conversation depth of field, but if you don't like having depth of field in just gameplay, chances are changing the option in the graphics settings of your game doesn't actually do anything. So you need to look up the post-processing, and then the default effect most likely says DOF. Just change it to, I mean, I changed it to none, but you can just use any word that doesn't make sense for the game, and it will not register, and then the depth of field will be completely disabled. So those are kind of the changes you have to make in the ini file just to make it a little bit better. But now we're going to go into the game and we're going to go and set up Reshade. Now here we are in beautiful Tacarigua, because like I said, I'm currently doing my annual playthrough, so I just finished Risen 1 and I'm currently playing Risen 2, and I'll be doing Risen 3 after this, while also probably making a remaster tutorial on Risen 3 because there's a lot of things you can do. But we're now in the game. If you press home, you should have Reshade open. There's probably a tutorial. You can skip it if you want because I'm going to explain some of the things. Some of these don't compile at all, but that's usually just because the engine is not compatible with these effects, so you can just ignore them. We don't even need them anyways. I have some effects of my own here. I'm not going to make a preset like I did with any other playthrough or remaster videos, because everyone's taste on a preset for Reshade is so much different, and I feel like it's better to just tinker it on your own. It's actually not that hard, so we're going to get into this. Now, I'm pretty sure, because I can't remember, Immerse is a paid effect, but there's also free versions which have the same name, so you can probably do that as well. But I'm going to show you some of the changes they make and what they can do. One of the most important things I recommend adding is anti-aliasing and the MXAO for the ambient occlusion. Reason why is I love shadows, but most of the older games just don't add shadows for a lot of objects in the game because, well, it would completely tank your PC. But for Reshade, it should somewhat be fine. I currently have it off, so you don't see the Reshade effects right now. If you want to use these same ones, I say go for it. I'm going to turn off performance mode just so I can actually edit the files and show you what it actually does. But like I said, there's also like a free version over here that you can turn on. But I use the Immerse one because I just like it a little bit more. So, Lightroom is just changing the color grading. This is for more ambient occlusion. Sharpen is sharpen. Anti-aliasing, well, I feel like if you're watching this video and it's your first time hearing this, then you must be a new PC gamer. And Solaris is a form of like a bloom effect for the game. The game itself already has a decent amount of bloom. I just like having a lot of bloom, but not over the top. So yeah, right now the effects are off. And I'm going to turn on the effects now. And you should notice a sizable difference in the amount of shadows, because the Reshade, the MXAO, adds basically shadows to most of the objects in the game. Like you can see here, the grass doesn't really have anything, and each individual grass has a little bit more shadow. And I can also tell you that right now I'm running at 144 frames per second, and turning this on changes it to like 130. So it doesn't actually tank that much FPS, or 128. It does a little bit, but it's not exactly that your whole PC would run into 30 FPS. That's, well, unless it's so bad. And then also a little bit of the bloom, which is kind of hard to see, but it adds a more bluish effect to the bloom. So yeah, but basically I would recommend to have you can use the search tab to look up anything that you can use. I would use up a sharpen effect. Now, the one I'm using is only on 0.3. I don't have it as sharp because originally this one is super sharp on 1. And I feel like the game is already not so blurry. I use sharpening in a lot of games because a lot of them end up just looking way too blurry. And sharpening does help a little bit, but this one kind of already looks fine as is. So I would put the sharpening on a low intensity, but you can also use like adaptive sharpen and then just change the strength to a little less, or go to AMD fidelity contrast. I don't think you should change this as much because the sharpening isn't as strong as many other ones. So, but I just use Immerse sharpen and then I put the effects on 0.3. because I don't want them to be as strong. I would use anti-aliasing. I already have this one. I think if you look up AA, you have more options. Yeah, FXA, Pirate FXA, SMAA, TAA, TFAA, NFAA. You have a lot of options you can choose from to make the hard edges well, a little bit less sharp. And then of course, the ambient occlusion. There's also a free one, which does pretty much the same effect. And again, you can also change the quality yourself. You can also edit the sample radius to make it stronger or lower. You can kind of see it in the corner, on the bottom right corner. You can see how harsh the shadows are. I wouldn't put it that hard. I think just even the standard one looks fine as is. You can also change the blending mode, but I keep it on default. But I also use immerse. So that's basically all you can do to improve the game, as far as I'm aware. But again, there aren't that many mods that help out. But I feel like with Reshade, the anti-warp, and the unofficial patch, and of course the texture pack, you don't really need more for the game. I think it looks good as is. So yeah, that's basically how to improve Risen 2. Yeah, I'll probably be back very soon with Risen 3 once I'm done with this playthrough. Because Risen 3 definitely has a little bit more than what Risen 2 has to offer. So yeah, stay tuned, I'd say. And otherwise, if you're interested in Risen, there's a few playthroughs of mine you can watch. And I'll see you there. Anyways, that's it for me. Remember to check the description. Everything's down there. And I'll see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.